Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga Fantasy Show. Checking in once more for some fantasy football content alongside my partner in crime, Rune. Welcome back. Glad you're feeling well and up for another fine show that we have in store.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be back and looking forward to the weekend and especially the big game on Saturday evening, of course.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, loads of. We were going through it last night. Myself and Mark on the prediction show, and we were saying that some intriguing games. There's a big game Saturday, and there's some games that look like they could be hard to predict. We were certainly struggling our way through some possible upsets along the way. So good morning, everyone. Welcome along to the show. Please do make sure you leave a thumbs up on this show. Comment along. We've had a few questions asked on social media. Already one in the chat from Gel Poster, checking in from Hershey as well. So that's brilliant. Good. Well, say good morning. Must be very early morning, I presume. The time difference. So welcome to the show. Get stuck in and just sit back and enjoy with us. Any questions you have, where to pop them in the chat, and make sure you're checking out Bulinews for all the best Bundesliga content in English across the board. Fantasy football, long reads, previews, reviews, teams of the week. Bulinews has it all covered. So make sure you check them out if you haven't already. Right then, Rune, we'll just get straight stuck in and then we'll pick up questions as we go, as per tradition. So your three defender picks, budget, mid-price and premium, if you will.
Yeah, thank you. Could have mentioned Nathaniel Brown as my budget pick, but that would be too obvious. I hope everyone will make sure to have him in your team for the weekend. But yeah, I wanted to go with someone else, a bit more of a differential, Daniel Svensson from Dortmund. He's a player I know a bit from the Danish Superliga. I've been quite impressed with how he's managed to fit in real quickly. I think at Dortmund, it's a huge step, but I think he did really well against Sporting in midweek with Benzebaini out. So he should get another chance in the starting lineup, I think, against Bochum, which looks like a good game for Dortmund on paper. They just managed to get a really confidence-boosting win in the Champions League. So they should have plenty of confidence going into that game. And I think it's at 7 million. Svensson is an interesting differential this week. And then I've gone with a player that may come as a surprise to some, given Hoffenheim just conceded 4 goals against Union at home. But actually, if you look at Østigård's points, that's quite shocking because despite the fact that Hoffenheim conceded all those goals, he still managed to get more than 300 points. So yeah, that's an example of how the scoring system works, and that you can still do well even if you even if your team isn't performing. Because Østigård's strength seems to be a pretty good fit for the game. He's winning a lot of duels. So 252 points alone came from duels won. So may seem like a bit weird timing to bring in a Hoffenheim defender, but if he continues like that, then 9 million isn't a lot. And Hoffenheim actually have a quite good schedule coming up now. They have Werder this weekend, which isn't an easy game, but after that, they have a really nice run of fixtures. So one to keep an eye on. If he does something like that again this weekend, then definitely an interesting pick. And then finally, my premium pick is Anthony Casey, because none of the expensive options at the back really excite me this week. I think it's a bit difficult with Bayern and Leverkusen playing each other. Maybe you could go with someone like Frimpong, because I actually kind of fancy Frimpong against Guerrero. I think that that's a key battle, and one that, in terms of pace, I think Frimpong could cause a lot of problems for Bayern. But yeah, I went with Anthony Cassie. Just wanted to mention him because he's coming back from suspension. And I really like Mainz' game against Heidenheim. I think Mainz were quite unlucky not to beat Augsburg last week. And now they're playing a Heidenheim side who, they won in Europe last night, but also playing in Europe can take its toll on the players. It's maybe they may be a bit tired after the game in Copenhagen, and generally I just think that Mainz are the better side and the more informed side at the moment. So Kasi is another good option and at a pretty low price for what he delivers.
Yeah, obviously any kind of matchup with Heidenheim right now seems to be a good idea to bank on those players. Great to see their efforts last night, although you might not have appreciated it as much, Rune, perhaps, with your locality. But I was very shocked at the fact that they did come back and set themselves up for a big second leg showdown in Germany. So some good picks in there, some good differentials, particularly Rune. So thank you for running through those. We shall, fend off some questions now. So, first of all, one in from David T. Good morning to you. Has asked, would you wait to get Grimaldo back this week? Obviously, given the matchup, obviously a player that most people will have had in their teams for a good while. One that has maybe felt fixture proof for a good deal of time as well in the last season and a half, or season and a bit. What do you reckon, Rune? Would you hold and maybe wait for this top spiel on Saturday to play out?
Maybe because everyone sold Grimaldo last week anyway. So that makes a difference, the fact that you don't already have him in your team. And the way I see it, I think Bayern could dominate possession heavily in the game, and Leverkusen would be happy to sit back and try to hit them on the counter with someone like Frimpong trying to cause problems in behind. So it may not be the sort of game where Grimaldo gets on the ball a lot. Not saying he won't do well, still be on set pieces and everything, but I could see it being a game where Leverkusen will end up defending for a lot of the game and not be as much on the ball as they usually are. So I think that speaks against Grimaldo, and maybe that 20 million is better spent elsewhere this weekend. That's what I think at the moment, at least. Definitely worth considering waiting to bring him back, I think.
Yeah, it is a tricky one. Again, we were talking about it last night on the prediction show, how we think it might go, how we think maybe the best way for Leverkusen to approach it is, and like you say, Rune, they might not have a lot of the ball, so it could be an energy sapping game for them, but they must at some point really go for Bayern and go for the throat and really kind of up the tempo at some point, which is what Celtic did at times and made Bayern look uncomfortable. We'll see if Leverkusen have that in their locker, and therefore players like Grimaldo, obviously would be crucial to putting in dangerous crosses and getting involved in the play for sure. Good morning, Broody. Good morning, Sard. Thank you for popping in and saying hello. Just to pick up, Rune, I think you mentioned Kachi. Obviously, he's been. You say he's been away with suspension.
Yeah, he just missed one game last week because of suspension, so he'll be back now.
Yeah, smashing. So there you go. Hopefully, that's helping you there, Sard. One question that was asked on socials, I know, was from one of our regulars as well, and it's in reference to defender, so I'll pick this one up now from Greg Jenkins. So thank you for this, Greg. Hope you get to catch the show at some point today. He's asked thoughts on David Raum. Disappointing returns 2 matches in a row, but favourable schedule in front of him. Cheers, lads. Always love the fantasy show to start off the match week. Thank you for that, Greg. Thoughts on Raum Rune? Obviously, they'll be kicking the match week off tonight in Augsburg. Looks like a game that again could be quite close. Tricky one to call results wise with Augsburg's upturn in form. So, would you fancy Raum to bag some good points in Augsburg, do you reckon?
Yeah, I've been a bit disappointed with his recent performances and the points he's been getting because actually it looked like a really nice run of fixtures for him. But I think at 15 million, he's not been performing at the level where you think he's worth the money. That said, I still think he's a key player for Leipzig, and on his day, he's definitely capable of getting a really, really good return and one of the best defenders in the game when he's really performing. So I feel like if you already have him, it makes sense to keep him also because they have Heidenheim at home next week, if I remember correctly. So that's another really, really good game for Raum there. Not sure I'd bring him in for this week based on his recent performances. That's not been good enough, and it is a bit of a tricky game away in Augsburg. But yeah, if you have him already, I think it makes sense to keep him unless you want to spend that money elsewhere, of course. Not a bad hold by any means.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that one, Greg. Morning from Lawrence as well. Good morning to you. Saying maybe it's a bit early this week, perhaps, but since Ito is finally back training again, should we expect Bayern centre-backs to start rotating soon? Interesting one with Hiroki Ito. Obviously returned to the Bayern setup. Got a brief run out midweek against Celtic. Obviously he came in and Bayern conceded pretty much straight away, which, not necessarily any fault on him, but a player that Bayern have not had at their disposal all season long because of a bad broken foot, I think, and maybe other complications along the way. Rune, definite possibility that Bayern and company will start to look at bringing players in and out centre-back wise. Obviously seen Eric Dyer make the odd rare appearance as well. So although I think he knows, or company at least knows what his go-to for now centre-backs are. But if Ito comes in and does well, that could change.
Yeah, I think he'll need some time at least. And another interesting thing is that I think he replaced Guerrero against Celtic. That's also something he has in his locker. He's capable of playing the left back position and offering a more like defensive take on that position. But yeah, I think he'll need some more time to adjust to everything because he's been out for so long before we can expect him to start in central defense. Also, Kim was just rested the other day. So I think for the next period of time, it will probably still be Upamecano and Kim. I wouldn't be worried about those two getting rotated out too much.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that, Lawrence. Good morning to official DNL. Great source of information as always. Thank you for your comment, and we are very much indeed glad to be back. If you could pick one, Catchy or Visor. Rune, guessing Catchy is your premium pick. You'd probably favour the Mainz man. Obviously, Werder taking on a Hoffenheim side who are likely to give up chances and allow a great deal of potential to Mitchell Weiser. So I just have this weird feeling about Heidenheim this weekend. For whatever reason, I think they're gonna show up against Mainz and create problems. Doesn't necessarily mean that Catchy won't therefore get fantasy points, but yeah, I think it's a real toss-up 50-50 for me. But yeah, Rune, you probably just about favouring Catchy.
Yeah, I have a good feeling about Mainz with Burkhardt back too and everything, and especially also Heidenheim having just played in Europe. Of course, that gave them some confidence on the one hand, and they rested some players, but still think they're coming back from Copenhagen, and I think they've struggled to play in two competitions at the same time, to play in Europe while maintaining focus on the Bundesliga. That's actually been a big problem of theirs this season. So that's also part of the reason why I have that feeling about Mainz. But actually, Weiser is a really interesting pick, and I even should have mentioned him as my premium pick instead, because he more fits into that category than Kasi does. Because if Hoffenheim defend the way they did last week against Union Berlin, then Weiser is an excellent option this week, actually. I have been a bit disappointed with him because from the start of the season, it looked like his playing style would be really well suited to the new scoring system, and he hasn't exactly fully lived up to the expectations I had for him. But definitely a really, really good pick this week, given Hoffenheim struggles, especially. I think he's just one yellow card away from suspension. But doesn't matter too much with 5 substitutions and everything. So actually, a really good alternative. I'll probably go with Weiser actually instead of Kasi. To choose between them.
Yeah, fair enough. Majid has asked, would we double up on Mainz defence with Kachi and Seno? Thank you for that question, Majid. That's also an interesting one. I think I already have, I should probably know this, have Seno in my team. So popping in Kachi and doubling up doesn't sound like the worst idea at all. Always kind of feel like it's a bit of a risk just because Mainz haven't hit the heights so far in 2025. But yeah, for all the reasons that you've already described, Rune, it stands to reason that they should have a lot of the ball and a lot of the play against the Heidenheim side. That shall, be more confident, but no doubt a bit more fatigued.
Yeah. And obviously, it's always a bit of a risk if Mainz don't show up and don't perform. Then you have 2 players perhaps not performing the way you expected at the back. But with that said, I think probably know what you're going to get from Sano at this point. He just gets around 200 points consistently every game, and with this new scoring system, like we talked about with Østigård earlier. Even if your team concede a few goals and even if they don't win, you can actually still perform well. And I think Sano is doing really, really well for the price. So definitely worth considering. I think in terms of their prices, they offer a lot, both players. But obviously, it can be a risk to invest that much in the same team. You could also go with someone like Svensson, for example, instead of Sano. That would be an alternative.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that. Right, we're just going to move on to midfielders now. Do not worry, Gel Poster. Going to get to your question in regards to Bayern and Leverkusen assets, whether to keep or dump. And Majid, we will answer your question about goalkeepers. We don't, generally speaking, week to week do goalkeepers just because there's not always a great deal of change. But we will try and comment on that for you once we've gone through the midfielders that Rune has picked very kindly as per. So again, back over to yourself for your 3 midfielders.
Budget pick is Tom Bischoff. His ownership is really high, but just wanted to mention him because it's crazy how he's managed to perform this season, fantasy wise and real life too, despite all the struggles Hoffenheim have faced. He's a machine fantasy wise, I'd say. For the price, especially, he performs like a player who's maybe even 2 or 3 times worth that. What he's worth, 5 million. That's really low for Bischoff, and Hoffenheim have a really favorable run of fixtures now. So if you don't already have him, then it makes sense to bring him in now at least. And then I've gone with Jamie Giddens, another player who I think is performing really well for his price. 10 million, not a lot for someone like Giddens. He's one of the players I think Dortmund will rely on to break down Bochum's defense, and he'll probably be on the ball a lot, trying to take on defenders. And I think he's been a difference maker all season, performed reasonably well, even during Dortmund's difficult times. So yeah, good player for the price. And then finally, I just wanted to mention Kevin Stöger. Price tag is a bit high, I think, but I think he's really seized his chance in midfield for Gladbach after a tough period of time. While Honorat and Player have been out injured, he's stepped in and put in some really impressive performances in midfield. And I think his strength on the ball, and combined with his ability to win tackles, gives him a really good foundation for picking up points. Well suited for the scoring system, and will be a lot on the ball for Gladbach. Should keep his place for the time being. No real reason to take him out for Seoane.
Yeah, absolutely. He's done well since he's come back in. Like you say, opportunity presents itself, and all the player can do is take that opportunity, which Stöger has done. So yeah, absolutely, well played to him. Questions that I think we have to field are raging around the Bundesliga fantasy community right now are obviously indeed around those Bayern and Leverkusen assets in all over the pitch, obviously, but particularly in midfield and otherwise. So Majid has asked, firstly, is Musiala worth keeping? And I've also got Kimmich. Stands to reason that, certainly Musiala should be playing. He'll be likely to be a difference maker for the record champions. They will need to have creative flair and players to break down Leverkusen and change this recent poor head-to-head record that they have with the current champions. Kimmich might also get on the ball a great deal if Bayern have control of it and be able to make crucial passes and progress the ball forwards. So again, chances for the midfield general to get lots of points. Anything else on that point, Rune?
No, I think that made a lot of sense, what you said. I think Musiala is worth keeping. He's a player Bayern will rely on to make the difference. I actually expect Leverkusen to defend for much of the game. As I said earlier, they'll probably play with 4 actual defenders. Could see them going with the 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 formation that Alonso has been using sometimes, especially since the turn of the year. So both Musiala and Kimi should be on the ball a lot, trying to break down the Leverkusen defense. That's what I expect at least. And the same with Wirtz. Probably won't be that much on the ball, but could still have a great game and will be key to Leverkusen's chances, of course. Leverkusen will probably rely on him to try to bring the ball forward when they try to hit Bayern on the counter, and hope that he can pick out the right passes and finish up the chances when they get them. So both players, both Musiala and Wirtz, are always difference makers, always capable of making the difference for their teams, and that also, that's the same this week, I think.
Yep, yeah, absolutely fair. Broody has asked in relation to that, or stating that he's thinking about dropping Musiala and even Wirtz for the match day. What do we think about that? Is it maybe better to replace them with safer options like Kimmich and Xhaka? Obviously, what we said about Kimmich stands to reason, and hopefully that helps you out there, Broody. Xhaka, and then going into a question from Anthony, which we'll cover in a sec. Rune, you might be better than a place to say whether Palacios will start or not. but certainly Xhaka, they will have a lot of work cut out for them. So they might, they might get a lot of points more so this week with potentially winning duels and winning tackles and things like that, rather than their maybe usual way of gaining points via the passes. Because if Leverkusen don't have a lot of the ball, but at times Leverkusen will have to play. They will have to come and play, and Xhaka and co will be crucial to that. So it's a tricky one. Myself personally, I'd have to keep at least one of Musiala and Wirtz, even if you then felt that you didn't have enough money to bring in both or one of Kimmich and Xhaka. Rune, do you feel that's just too much of a risk taking them both out?
Yeah, I think so. As I just said, I don't mind keeping them both, and I don't think Xhaka is a safe option this week because I don't expect Leverkusen to be much on the ball, and that's usually how he gets most of his points. Yeah. I think Kimmich is a pretty safe option. Will probably get to make a lot of passes. Musiala too. And yeah, I think it's really difficult to drop a player like Wirtz because he's always capable of stepping up, showing up, and he's proven that already a lot of times. So yeah, I wouldn't mind keeping them both. And Kimmich, having him as well, makes sense too. Xhaka, not too keen on him this week.
Yeah, no, I get that for sure. I think for my point of view, the only Leverkusen player fixture proof for this week has to be Wirtz for me. Other players I could see dropping out of my team, just because of the fact that he's a world-class player and a huge difference maker. Do we know anything about Palacios and whether he'll partner Xhaka in the midfield? Obviously, they might need those two kind of gritty players to work their way through Bayern.
I think pretty sure he'll start. I don't think it's a game that's well suited for Garcia. No. I think Palacios is the best fit. Andrik could work out too, but he's not good enough on the ball, I think, for when Leverkusen get the ball back. They need someone with a bit more ball playing ability. No offense to Andrik. And I think Palacios is more like a balanced player, capable of picking out passes, but also making the dirty fouls that Leverkusen need. And so I assume Palacios will start alongside Xhaka in central midfield.
Makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. David has asked, who would you give the star to, Musiala or Wirtz, or someone else? Maybe. My gut says Musiala, but I was wrong 2 game weeks ago with that. Probably the safe bet. Again, for what we've described already, would be Musiala. But Rune, anyone else other than Musiala or Wirtz had an inkling in your thoughts for your star, or is it just between those two?
I think I'll go with Musiala right now. The alternative would probably be Xavi Simons for me in midfield, not from that game, but he stepped up for Leipzig last week, but I have a feeling that it could prove to be a difficult game for them against Augsburg, and I wasn't overly impressed with them last week, even though they won. So I'll probably go with Musiala, just because I expect him to get more points from passes made and dribble attempts than Wirtz.
Yeah, for sure. Right, there's a question from FPL Swans, which we'll come to at the end. So we've got about 5 minutes or so. So we'll run on to strikers now. Rune, run us through your 3 picks for those forward positions.
Yeah, budget pick is Mohamed Amoura. I don't really like any of the really cheap options up front this week. So I've decided to go with Amoura as my budget pick. He's another player who I think is offering a lot for his price at 10 million. Stuttgart away, not exactly an easy game by any means, but I could see both teams getting on the score sheet, and Wolfsburg have a really good schedule, especially after this fixture. So he's a player I'm keeping an eye on, and a player who's shown that he's capable of showing up against any opponent. Actually, probably Wolfsburg's most important attacking player. So yeah, I want to keep an eye on if you don't want to bring him in this week for a game that's not that easy. Mid-price pick is Hugo Ekitike from Frankfurt, who, on the other hand, I think is a must-have player this weekend, and even a possible star option. I think he's further stepped up his game since Mamou's departure, and Eintracht are playing one of the weakest defenses in the league at home in Holstein Kiel. So could be a really productive game for Ekitike. And I think this week, usually I just put the star and Kane up front, but this week it makes sense to consider Ekitike as an alternative. And then finally, Benjamin Sesko is my premium option. He got back on the score sheet last week. Leipzig ended their winless run, and that was a really important win both for Leipzig and for Sesko, because they've not been playing well for some time now, and that win should give them some confidence. Augsburg away, as we've talked about, may be a bit more tricky than it looks on paper, but then they have Heidenheim at home afterwards, Leipzig. So
sure,
two pretty good games coming up for Sesko, who's coming off a goal. So yeah, I think a good option in the premium category. Girassi is an alternative, but obviously he's more expensive, costs 5 million more, but a premium option, I think.
Yeah, thank you for those, Rune. Right, so we've got a few minutes to finish off with questions. So we'll get through as many of these or all of them if we possibly can do. So Anthony, has mentioned is Girassi a good pick? You know, he absolutely stands to reason that Girassi is a good pick this weekend. The matchup, you know, the way that, well, the way that he's playing in the Champions League certainly is his records is seriously impressive in Europe for BVB. So are Dortmund, really, aren't they? They seem to be doing well in Europe and not so well in the Bundesliga. They've got a bit of history with Bochum, like we were talking about on Thursday night. Their record there isn't amazing. Again, the VFL will make it as tetched and dogged as they possibly can do, but Girassi and Gittins will be key to breaking down that team. So not a bad choice at all. Then Broody is just mentioned. Not sure about these Leipzig assets, to be honest. They always disappoint me when I choose them, and Augsburg is not an easy place, it seems, especially when they play at home.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And we also mentioned that, but on paper, still looks like a good game for Leipzig. And then they also have the Heidenheim game afterwards at home, which is a very favorable one. But true, might be better to wait 1 week and bring them in for the Heidenheim game.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that, Broody. FPL Swans asked on Blue Sky, what do we think about buying a Leverkusen asset? So hopefully we covered that first part of your question, pal. Especially Kane, who needs goals to get points, and Girassi, Girassi, Ekitike, and Šeško all look great to partner him. But normally I'm against 3 forwards, but is it worth it now? So as he refers to there, Rune, some good options which you've already covered as well up top. Does it stand to reason that we throw 3 strikers up there this week in a formational change if people don't have that already?
I guess if you get Ekitike and Girassi alongside Kane, that could work. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't. I think Kane and Ekitike, that partnership works well this weekend. But sure, if you can get Girassi, if you have that you want to spend that money on your front line, that's viable.
Yeah, for sure. Sard has asked, is it crazy switching from Gjerulff to Kane this week?
From Gjerulff to Kane, so you already have Gjerulff, but you want to sell him for Kane. Not sure I'd do that for this week, actually. Gjerulff against Bochum. If you already own Gjerulff, that's a pretty good matchup for him, where I think Leverkusen Bayern is a bit more difficult to predict. Not sure I'd do that, actually.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, it's a fair shout. Oh no, he means the opposite.
Okay.
Opposite way around.
I mean, that could work out. Selling Kane is always a bit dangerous because he can score goals against any opponent, and his ownership is really high. But would be a gamble. But Gjerulff's matchup is really good, so could work in your favor. Depends on whether you want to take that chance. That is a chance to go without Kane.
For sure. And then I just want to highlight our first comment of the show. So apologies, Joel Poster. We've just got to yours right now. Thank you for watching and tuning in. How should we handle Bayern and Bayer assets this week? Keep or dump? I think hopefully throughout the show, if you've been watching it all, we've explained relatively well, fingers crossed, who you should keep and who you should dump from both sides. Very much looking at Leverkusen assets, for me, the one that you keep is at least Florian Wirtz, and others would be tricky and maybe easier to dump than Bayern assets. But absolutely stands to reason that you could take a gamble getting rid of Kane if you have him in your team, just because he needs to be involved in games or needs to be scoring in games. There's some big calls to be made on both fronts. So fingers crossed we've helped you a little bit with that one as well. And then Goal Machine checking in. Hope you're doing well. What about selling Gjerulff and buying Ekitike? Yeah, I mean both fixtures look good, but Ekitike is the one that I actually trust more at the moment, oddly.
Yeah, especially with this matchup. I think you definitely need to have Ekitike, and if that's the only way you can fit him in, then you have to sell Gjerulff. But I also really like Gjerulff this week, so maybe if you can find another way to get Ekitike in, that would be better if you already own Gjerulff.
Yeah, for sure. And then just very quickly, because I know we had a question on it, if I can find it anywhere. But Rune, any thoughts or changes just in regards to goalkeepers quickly? Because I know the question was asked somewhere in the chat earlier.
At the moment, I actually just have Luca Philipp from Hoffenheim, but he's not been doing particularly well, to say the least. Hoping he does better this week. Marius Müller from Wolfsburg costs 5 million and plays instead of Grabara, who's out injured as well. So he's another cheap option that you could consider. And if you want to, maybe you could partner him up with Philipp if you want to have a bit more safety in goal. That's an option, but still I wouldn't spend too much on the goalkeeper position.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But thank you for asking that, Majid. We do cover goalkeepers every so often, but we know where the points are scored, don't we? Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Another awesome show. Very much led by you guys asking the questions and our expert, of course, Rune. I'm just here as a conduit to ask these questions. But yeah, fantastic stuff. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. We shall leave it there. So just the usual little odds and bods of admin. Please do remember to leave the thumbs up on this show if you possibly can do. As per, if you've not watched us live, you can comment in the YouTube comment section. Any questions you have up to the deadline, obviously just prior to the 7:30 UK time kickoff this evening between Augsburg and Freiburg. make sure you subscribe and also make sure you're following Bulinews on all social media. So, yeah, thank you all, guys. Thank you, Rune, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers all.